On this channel, I want to take a look at the news that the mainstream don't report and to take time to delve into the background of events. The contrived headlines in the online newspapers frequently misrepresent what is really going on. Nearly all mainstream media shy away from stories that take time to tell. They like sound bites and they prioritize stories with good video imagery, such as lots of shouting and shooting. It couldn't be more obvious that the UK is failing on numerous levels. Yet instead of addressing these problems, politicians and pressure groups prefer to use any emergency to push their particular agenda rather than seeking to fix the problem. Certainly Donald Trump is doing that. America is faltering after 80 very successful years, and he tells his followers that it's all the fault of the Chinese, the Vietnamese, the European Union, and penguins in the South Atlantic. In Britain, we have a couple of structural problems from which others then cascade. A quick recap on videos 1 and 2 then, and we'll move on after that. The shadow class is a group of people comprising the secret establishment, politicians, the media types, senior civil servants in central and local government, and their bandwagon jumping fellow travellers. That's hundreds of thousands of people in cushy jobs, essentially fiddling while Rome burns. Off the top of my head, I'm talking about the police and the justice departments, council officials, Quango staff, too many to name, ombudsmen, crime commissioners, post office management. And that list doesn't even scratch the surface. There are hundreds more organisations bursting with people who have no function except to talk to each other. This hasn't happened overnight, so it's important to understand how it has happened. You might think I'm going on about nothing important, so let me give you a figure. In 2014, the Cabinet Office, the government's own watchdog, put a figure on just part of the problem. The amount that they stated was £120 billion wasted, and that was back then. In 2019, the government came up with a new figure for the years 2019 to 2024. That figure was an additional £131 billion. These are real government figures. That's £250 billion that the government accepts is wasted. So now, do you think I'm thinking about trivial matters? But there's more to come. These figures only take account of the inefficiencies. Imagine if you added up all the organisations that are doing nothing of importance, but doing it efficiently. They haven't been counted. As the song goes, we're busy doing nothing, working the whole day through, trying to find lots of things not to do. We're busy going nowhere. Isn't it just a crime? Well, it certainly should be. That 250 billion begins to look like a massive understatement. It's a wonder we have any money left to do anything, and we really must put an end to this. It began with the rise of the political class after the First World War. We then started to mirror France, which since the Revolution has had political dynastic families. The difference between France and Britain is that they have always had a tradition of people power, demonstration, riot, and revolution. It's been said that the British, though we're mad abroad, we're placid in our homeland. Because this is a small island, it's always been possible for the authorities to close the ports and track down troublemakers. And who controls the ports? Shadow class, customs and excise, the border force, the police, the intelligence services, the people who check the passports, the visas and identities, the people who pore over cameras, the databases and the spreadsheets. Those are the people in control. In the last 80 years, our island has become our prison. We don't have a secret police as such. We have a class of people very comfortable with their status quo, well paid and pensioned, seemingly harmless. But when their fully funded and expensed sinecure is disturbed, they have the combined power to get very nasty. And they do. It's always been my belief, the littlest people, the nastiest people, seek out the security of the largest organisations. And their smugness and arrogance is breathtaking. For example, the head of the BBC, that's the company that films EastEnders, has recently demanded that his Quango be funded from council tax, as though the BBC was a major utility. We can't get our bins emptied when we want to, but they believe we should pay through the nose and force-fed shadow class propaganda. Jack Straw, when he was a student, attended the LSE, the London School of Economics. That, in the 1960s, 70s, was a college that had a reputation for student lock-ins, riots, and a lot of police in attendance. Eventually, he rose to the lofty position of Home Secretary, where, ironically, he was able to read his own MI5 file. Not many people get to do that. After he retired from government, and he was in the Blair government for a number of years, he said this: "The establishment of this country is so corrupt, we don't have the mechanisms to even measure it." He meant, in part, every time an inquiry into some government failure or scandal was set up, a retired judge or similar was appointed to run it. It's like thieves being permitted to sit in judgment on themselves. And this was the view of the Home Secretary, one of the most powerful people in government. I'll give you one example that comes to mind that I can think of. A number of years ago, an inquiry was set up to investigate the many reports going around at the time of people and institutions with great power which allegedly had been systematically abusing children. The shadow class seems to have a thing about kiddie fiddling. The government of the day decided that on this occasion a UK judge should not be appointed to investigate their own. Instead, a female judge from New Zealand was brought over. For a number of reasons, she did no work whatsoever and was subsequently replaced. Nevertheless, her payoff was several £100,000. It subsequently transpired that she was paid a second sum, not disclosed at the time, hundreds of thousands of pounds more in pension payments. My point is this: even when the apparent astronomical cost of the shadow class inadvertently leaks out, deeper in the shadows are more costs that are astronomically, unimaginably off the scale. Britain, at least on paper, is a country with a half-decent GDP, and yet for most people, money is thin on the ground. So the question has to be asked, where is all the money leaking to? We know a huge amount of the National Welfare Bill is being paid to people who are getting state handouts that should not be. But there's a cost within that cost, and it's the actual cost of running the welfare state, not the people who are on the fiddle. The people and the many organisations that kick up a fuss each time a government tries to limit the growth of the welfare bill are members themselves of the shadow class. And welfare is a marvellous place to hide, because seeking to limit bogus claims can be made to sound as though you're calling sick people scroungers. Every time a government tries to limit the number of ineligible people who are getting payouts, a pressure group quite literally wheels out a couple of dozen women in wheelchairs with pre-printed banners. Convenient. The shadow class has a financial incentive to keep claimant numbers high and rising. It's their salaries, their pensions, their perks that are on the firing line. I can give you one example that comes to mind. Walking across the car park to my local supermarket recently, parked in the reserve bays, the disabled bays of course, near the entrance, were 3 top-of-the-range BMWs. 2 of them were estates. These cars were the size of railway carriages. All 3 had disabled stickers. Now, I'm a good driver, and I've owned E-Class Mercedes. They're big, and they can be difficult to manoeuvre in cramped high streets, and most of these people don't go far. Now that I'm older, and I don't spend my life on the motorway, I find a smaller car much easier to handle. So here's my question. How can you be ill and disabled and afford and be capable of controlling a car that big? I happen to be walking past the Proton Centre, I'll say this if it kills me, the Proton Treatment Centre in Manchester a few weeks ago. I saw the same thing. Brand new, top-of-the-range BMWs displaying disabled badges. So it's a nationwide issue, it's not just in Wales. The Motability Scheme for the disabled started out as making available small runabout cars for the truly disabled. Now, if you can con your doctor into signing you onto the scheme, you can get a fully expensed, top-of-the-range BMW for free. How did that happen? And the answer is the manoeuvrings of the shadow class. No one is saying that people who are genuinely ill should not receive the medical treatment they require. However, everywhere you look, there is excess at our expense, and it grows by the year. And it's always the usual suspects getting this largesse. It's never the guys who were bus drivers or scaffolders, or the shop assistants, or the men who dug up the street to lay pipes in all weathers. It's always the administrators on the inside, incestuously entangled with politicians who control the country's tax and spend budget. Any scheme that starts out as virtuous and value for money is targeted and then infected and mutates into a bloated organisation consuming salaries and perks. I've dealt with these people all my life, and I can tell you I'm pretty disgusted with them and the country that's allowed it to happen. So there we are, got that off my chest. More in my next video. Feel free to jab the like button, leave a comment, subscribe. It's still just about a 30% free country by my calculation, so comment while you still can. Finally, a quick word from my sponsor, which is me. I support my clients with IT and admin services and quite a bit of advice, no matter who they are or where they are. I build websites that show up at the top of search results and stay there without expensive advertising, and I can provide clients with dedicated email addresses. More than that, I can offer all kinds of virtual back-office services such as preparing contracts, writing quotations, invoices and receipts, as well as general correspondence. For some clients, I monitor their business emails to make sure inquiries don't get missed. When I had my own company manufacturing internal fitments, I found I was so busy ordering materials, making the products, delivering and installing, I didn't have time to deal with new enquiries and line up the next job. Consequently, there was always a pause before we could start the next contract, and that's expensive if you're paying the salaries of 6 people who are just standing around. So I do more than just knock up a quick website. I save my clients money and boost their turnover by tens of thousands of pounds or more. I improve efficiency and profitability and even help avoid expensive problems and disputes. Every client is different, so I provide a flexible and individual service so you can stand out in the crowd by doing the same. All the details are on my website, strategicsupport.uk.